everybody, it's Teresa. Welcome to my channel. I'm going to make a little peyote band ring today. It's going to be even count peyote. It's just exactly like the bracelet, the even count peyote bracelet that I made. And I'll link that video up in the corner of this video and in the description box below in case you didn't see it, if you want to go back and watch it. Of course, I'm just not going to do this fringe around the edge like I did in it, but the technique is exactly the same, and I'm just going to show you how you join it at the ends to turn it into a ring. It's really easy. I tried to find an example. This is the only one. I don't have just a simple band ring to show as an example, but this is the band of this is peyote, and it's what I'm going to be doing today. Of course, this is all white. I'm going to use a couple different colors today to make it easier to see. And then there's so much you can do with peyote as far as rings, or well, as far as anything. But this one, the top of it is it's peyote all the way around. The only difference here is that I went into just regular seed beads, and then I did a little bit larger ones. And then these are, I think these are probably 2 by 3 millimeter rondelles at the top, and it gives it that bump there in the middle. So that's what you get with that. And then I have taken the stones like the chatons and ribolis and stones like that don't have a hole, and bezeled them and made them the top, and then did a peyote band around it. You do the bezel with the peyote stitch. So I couldn't find any of those though. I guess I've sold them all. I'm going to try to use a couple of different colors today and make a little stripe down around the outside, and then a color on the inside. On the outside, I'm going to use this light bronze. These are delicas. You can use, I've never used Toho, but the Toho Treasures, I think is what they're called. They're a cylindrical bead like the delica beads are, and they work great. I like using the delicas for peyote. It just makes they sit so well together, and it makes it easier, and I like it. I've got these are light bronze. I'm going to do that around the outside, and then on the inside is, I know you're shocked, purple. This is dyed opaque purple. I tried to find opaque beads because I think those are easier to see than the shiny ones. This doesn't say opaque, and I guess they're kind of shiny, but hopefully you'll be able to see. I've got my 6-pound fire line because I usually use 6-pound fire line with peyote because it's such a tightly woven stitch. You don't really need the structure of an 8-pound. As far as what color thread I use, if I'm doing, the only place you're going to see the thread in peyote is around this outside edge here. Like with this, I used white because of course all the beads are all white, and you'll see it around this outside edge here. As far as the inside, you're not going to see the thread because this is so tight, the thread just gets sucked up in there. And you're not, like if I was going to use this bronze around the outside, and if I was going to use white on the inside, I would still use the smoke thread because you would see the thread around the outside. But if the inside were white even, you wouldn't see the thread because it just gets sucked up in there. I've got my scissors, of course, to cut my fire line, and then my chain nose pliers to flatten down the end of my thread when I thread the needle. I've already got my needle threaded. And I've got a couple of size 11 tulip beading needles here. Of course, I'm not going to use 2, but I always have an extra nearby because I'm very likely to drop one and not be able to find it. I think that's everything. Hold on and I'll get some of my beads poured out here. Okay, I've got a few of my beads poured out here, and I've got my needle threaded, and I've got a stop bead on it, just like I have been doing. I'm not leaving much of a tail at all because when I join this together, I'm going to sew through it so many times that I won't even need to sew this tail back in. So I'm not leaving much of a tail. This is even count, so you can do this with odd count. You can make rings with odd count peyote too. And you know, if you want to do a little design where you need a center point, like a little diamond or something, that's what odd count is good for. But this is going to be even count, so I'm going to pick up an even number of my beads. So I'm going to pick up 2 of the bronze, 4 of the purple, and 2 of the bronze. Of course, you don't have to do different colors. You can make it all one color, just whatever you want to do. I'm going to bring it all down to the end of my thread here. I'm going to put my stop bead up there at the top. I'll try to zoom in a lot here because these beads are little. Okay, now, just like with the other, we're going to pick up a bead and skip a bead. And the bead you skip, the bead you pick up is going to sit next to the bead you skip. And I'm going to do bronze down the outside here. So I'm going to skip this first bronze bead and go into the second bronze bead. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead and I'm going to go through that. I'm going to skip the first one and go through the second one. And pull my thread through. And I'm going to push my stop bead down to tighten it up. And that first, that bead I picked up sits right next to that bead that I skipped there. And it was a lot easier to get that to happen with the delicas than it was when I did the bracelet with the regular seed beads, because that's just how it works out. It's easier. The delicas are just easier to sit next to each other. Now, I'm going to skip. My thread is coming out of that this bronze bead right here. I'm going to skip my next purple bead and go into my next purple bead. And the bead I pick up is going to sit next to the bead I skip. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead because I want purple down the center. And I'm going to skip. It's hard to hold these little tiny beads up here so y'all can see. Okay, let me get this back up here. Get everything under control. Okay. Now I'm coming out of this top of this bronze bead. I'm going to skip the purple bead and I'm going to go into the next purple bead. This will be much easier once I get a few rows in and have more to hold on to. Now I'm going to pull this through slowly so as not to get my thread tangled. And that sets that purple bead right next to the purple bead I skipped. So now I'm going to skip my next bead, which is a purple bead. So the bead I pick up is going to sit next to the bead I skip. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. And I'm going to skip this purple bead and go into the next purple bead. Pull my thread through. And that sits that bead right next to the bead I skipped. And if it gets loose, you can just push your stop bead down to tighten things up. Okay, now I'm coming out the top of this. Shakes are a little bit worse today, y'all. I'm coming out the top of this purple bead. I'm going to skip this bronze bead and go into my last bronze bead. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead because it's going to sit next to the bead I skip. And I'm going to skip this bronze bead and go into the top bronze bead. And that sits that bronze bead next to the one I skipped. And now I'm going to come down. So now I'm going to be sewing into all the beads that are sticking out. So the bead I pick up is going to be sit next to the bead I skip. And I'm going to skip that first recessed in bronze bead. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead, and I'm going to go into the bronze bead that's sticking out. Pull my thread through. And that's what I've got now. Now I'm going to skip the recessed purple bead and go into the next purple bead that's sticking out. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. And go into the sticking out purple bead. Okay, now I'm going to skip the recessed purple bead and go into the next purple bead. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. Okay, now I'm going to skip the little recessed bronze bead down there at the bottom and go into the very bottom bronze bead. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead and go into my last little bronze bead down at the bottom. Okay, so that's what I got so far. Now I'm going to go back up, so I'm going to go into all those sticking out beads. So I'm going to skip this first recessed in bronze bead. I'm going to pick up a bronze bead, go into the sticking out bronze bead. Now I'm going to skip the recessed in purple bead and go into the sticking out purple bead. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. Now I'm going to skip the next recessed in purple bead and go into the sticking out purple bead. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. Now I'm going to skip the next recessed in bronze bead and go into the sticking out bronze bead. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead. Okay, now I'm going to go back down. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead and go into the sticking out bronze bead. Now I'm going to skip the recessed purple bead and go into the sticking out purple bead. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. Now I'm going to skip the recessed in purple bead and go into the sticking out purple bead. So I'm going to pick up a purple bead. Now I'm going to skip the recessed in bronze bead and go into the sticking out bronze bead down there at the bottom. So I'm going to pick up a bronze bead. And that's all you do, and you just keep doing that until you get it big enough to go around your finger. And I'll keep doing this until I get it big enough to go around my finger, and then when I come back I'll show you how we zip it together. It's just like zipping up a zipper. There's nothing hard about it at all. So I'll be back when I get it long enough to go around my finger. Okay, this is what I've got so far. And I was intending to make it big enough to go around my finger, but I've decided I don't want to sew for that long because it would take quite a while to get it big enough to go around my finger, and I'm still quite tired from where I didn't sleep the other night because the power was out. I slept well last night. I guess it's just going to take a few days to get over it. So I've got my ring mandrel out here, and I've made it big enough to go around the size 8. It's better if you have something like this to hold it around when you sew it together. Or of course, if you're making it for yourself, you can hold it around your finger. Just make sure not to stab yourself like I have done many, many times. But I wanted to show you here, when you end up, like this is where my stop bead is, this thread here. This is where I started with my stop bead coming out right here. And this down here is where my working thread is. You want to make sure you end up like, see this side, the little bronze bead is sticking out, and this side, the little bronze bead is recessed. That's how you want to end up, because we're going to sew it up just like a zipper. It's going to meet together like that and sew up just like a zipper. But before I start to sew it up, this last stitch I made, I'm going to, because when you sew it up, if you start to do it before you, I'm going to try to tighten it, sew back through here a time or two and try to tighten this up, because if you don't, this little bead is going to come loose when you try to sew it together. So I'm going to just go down this bead next to these two beads right here on the diagonal and pull my thread through. And then I'm going to go down another bead or two on the diagonal. And then I'm going to go across and go up the blue bead. Just make sure not to cross over any beads. And go up those two on the diagonal. And then I'm going to go up these two bronze beads here. Just making sure not to cross over any beads and to stay on the diagonal. And then I'm just going to go down, go over here and go down a couple beads. Just doesn't matter, just going through some beads to lock that last little bead there in place so that it doesn't come loose when I'm trying to sew it together. Now I'm going to go up these two on the diagonal. And now I'm coming out here where I can get ready to sew it together. So I'm going to hold it around my mandrel here. I'm going to hold it together there like a little zipper. And now I'm coming out the top of this bronze bead. I'm just going to go in the top of this bronze bead and pull them together there. Then I'm going to go down into this bronze. I'm going to alternate. I'm going to take my thread into this bronze bead, this blue bead, this blue bead, this blue bead, this blue bead, and just do it just like I'm sewing up a zipper here. And that just brings it together like that. Now I'm going to go down this blue bead, and you don't have to do it one at a time. If you can get through a couple of them at a time, that's fine. I'm going to go through both of these blue beads here. And that's just bringing it together like a little zipper there. Now I'm going to go through these two beads. If you can't get through both of them, just do it one at a time. I'm going to do it one at a time. I'm going to go through this blue bead. And that just brings it together. Now I'm going to go over here through this bronze bead and this bronze bead on the bottom here. And now I'm going to come over here to this bronze bead. And I'm going to go back through that bronze bead. And now I'm going to go back up all those beads again. And just keep going through beads. And it doesn't have to be the exact same beads you came down. You just need to keep going through up and down through beads until you get it good and tight. And just always sew on the diagonal so you don't show any thread. Now I'm going to come over here and go down these 2 beads. Well, I'm going to go down these 3 beads because apparently that's where that needle wants to go. And then I'm going to go up this bead. Just anywhere it looks that it might still be kind of loose. Just sew up through on the diagonal. And just sew back down on the diagonal. Just keep sewing through them. I'm going to take it off my mandrel now. Now, I talked about how I didn't leave a very long tail to sew in, because by the time I sew through this as many times as I'm going to, it's not going to come loose. But you do want to leave it on there until you get this part done, because if you take it off immediately, your beads are likely to fall off. So until you get all this sewing through back and forth done, you want to leave this attached. And now I'm just going to keep sewing down through beads on the diagonal. And then jumping over here and just starting to go back up. Sewing through them. Just keep sewing through them. Anywhere it looks like it might be loose. And you're just crossing your thread over, so when we're done, we're not going to have to sew any half-hitch knots or anything, because the thread's going to be crossed over itself so many times that it's not going anywhere. So just keep sewing through beads until you feel like it's all good and tight and not coming loose. Just make sure you always do it on the diagonal and go across your lines here so that you don't cross any beads. Just sewing back and forth through beads, getting them full of thread and tight and stuff. You can start to feel when you get through it a lot, it's a little bit harder to get through there because there's so much thread in the beads. Come back over here and get closer where my stop bead is coming out, because I know that's where I started sewing through. I want to make sure that's good and sewed through together. Make sure not to get your little stop bead thread caught like I just about did. Doesn't matter what beads you sew through, just keep sewing through until you Get everything locked in place good. It's getting pretty tight in here, so I think I'm about ready to cut everything off. And that's what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to cut off my working thread and my stop bead thread. And there is my little peyote stripe ring, all sewed together. Can't see where I sewed it together. It's all seamless. So let me get some of my stuff out of the way here and I'll be back. Okay, so there it is. There's my little peyote band ring. It's really simple, easy to make. I probably should have made, if I was going to make it for me, I probably would have made it wider. Should have made it wider, and you can make it as wide as you want to. You just want to pick up more beads when you start. Just if you're going to do even count, you want to pick up an even number of beads. And I was talking about using the 6-pound fire line. You can certainly use 8-pound. There's no reason why you can't. I just have both, and I just use the 6-pound for peyote. But you know, if you don't want to buy both sizes, if you just want to buy the one size, 8-pound is fine. There's no reason you can't use 8-pound. They're really easy to do. You could make a bunch of them and wear one on every finger if you wanted to. So I hope you all have enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate those of you who have subscribed to my channel and watched my videos and liked and commented on my videos. I have a website where I sell my jewelry. It's Teresa's Handmade Jewelry, and I'll put a link to it in the description box below in case you're interested, along with a link to my Facebook and Instagram and my email. If you haven't, I'd really love it if you'd subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified when I upload a new video. So until next time, I hope you all have a great day. Take care.